Okay, so this video is going to be about how to evaluate a Mythic Raider's performance. Perhaps you just want to know how you compare to the other players in your group, or perhaps someone's applied to your guild and you want to know, is this person someone that's worth taking? Or you are applying to a guild and you want to know what metrics you should include in your application if you're applying to the guild, or what they'll be looking at. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to review one of our applications blind. It'll just be the most recent application that's been posted, and I'm going to walk you through the process of how I would determine whether or not they're worth taking and just how they're evaluated in general. So the first thing I'm going to go do is find out who's the most recent applicant. So I go to our applications and I find out that we have a Death Knight. They've applied, they want to be a raider in the guild, and this is what I get. I get this information, and I'm supposed to make a determination as to whether or not we should try this person out. Well, we don't need a Death Knight at this particular point in time, so they would need to be something exceptional, right? The first thing I'm going to look at is this UI screenshot. I don't actually care too much about their armory, but just going to glance at the screenshot here. So let's take a look at it. This is his UI. I mean, this is public, so I'm not revealing any private information here, although perhaps it should be private, but I see his UI. What am I looking for in his UI? I'm mostly looking to see if he emphasizes important things. So key down here is his raid timers. You can see that he's taken his raid timers and he's placed them in a spot where his eyes are going to gravitate to very often. I would prefer that Infinite Darkness was maybe a different color. It would have showed a lot of emphasis because it's an important ability, and any important ability in a fight you want to emphasize so that you never miss it. But just because it's not emphasized and I say a different color or with a verbal countdown doesn't mean that they're going to miss the ability. It's just an indicator. I like to see that they have their raid frames. Surprisingly, some people only have their party frames on their screen, as crazy as that sounds. You do need to have the raid frames. And I don't really care too much if it's clean or not. You could have a piece of crap UI. It doesn't actually matter. But I am looking to see, have you emphasized things that are important? And it looks like he's done that. Do I care that he has these empty keybinds and that it could be pretty or not really? So we'll give him a thumbs up on the UI. Sure, looks fine. We're gonna glance at the overall logs. All right, so we took a glance at his overall logs. We want to know, can he do damage? All you got to do is look at the percentiles. He can do damage. He's got blue parses, purple parses, orange parses. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out when you do damage, what percentile you're in, whether or not it's good damage. This is good enough. Purples and oranges are ideal. Oranges are ideally what you want to see. Purples are good enough. As long as your mechanics are sound, purples will do just fine. Even blues can be just fine, as long as your mechanics are sound, which is what we're going to get into, the most important thing when you're evaluating whether or not somebody's worth taking. Are their mechanics sound? So we've looked at his UI. We could see that he's emphasized some things that look important, which is a good sign. We see that he can do damage. Okay, that's good to know. But now we're going to get into the core nitty-gritty, which is what you need to know and what you need to do if you want to evaluate someone. Now, I know that some groups, in fact, I think most groups, they won't do this. They'll just try anyone and then see how they do. They'll say, okay, let's just try tons of people, and then we'll just keep booting people until we get ones that are good. That's a way to do it. It's an effective way to do it. It's a lot of turnover. But I like to know beforehand whether or not someone's going to perform their mechanics correctly. So this next question we have on our application is the most important question. And even if an application that doesn't have this question on it, you should look to include this information on your application to whatever guild you're applying to, if you're applying, or just look to review this information if you're just comparing yourself or comparing applicants. So our question is, look for a knight of 25 plus wipes on progression that has an avoidable mechanic. That's the key. The fight has to have an avoidable mechanic. That is something that appears on the ground that you're supposed to move out of. That's core and fundamental to raiding. You know, the stuff appears on the ground, you have to move out of it, except for sometimes you have to move into it, but those are an exception. Set the death threshold to 2. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to set it to 3. Oftentimes I set it to 3, even though I asked them to set it to 2. This way, we filter out wipes where you died, say, like number 6 down the line to a mechanic, and the core fundamental problem wasn't you. It was actually someone else, and then things fell apart from there. By setting this threshold, we're going to filter all that information out. We're going to find out very quickly who are the liabilities in the raid. So let's see what he's done. I give them the opportunity to answer this question themselves, which is the one that undoubtedly people have the most trouble with. I want to give him the opportunity to present himself in the best light. So he's chosen what ability? Let's find out. It's going to link me to the Warcraft logs page, and he has picked regenerative expulsion on what even ability is that? Carapace of N'Zoth. So he's got 20 wipes on Carapace of N'Zoth. We're looking at regenerative expulsion. Okay, I know what that is. This must be the red circle that appears on the ground when you attack one of the little cyst things. How do you get hit 34 times by that? That's insane. Very clearly here, you can see that there are some problems in his group. So his name is at the bottom. He's like, look, I don't get hit by this ability. And you can clearly see that he does way better at this ability than other people. Unfortunately, this is really not an ability that I consider an avoidable mechanic. This is a mechanic where I would think if you got hit by this, something is seriously wrong. It should really say 0. It lasts for a long time. So I'm not going to use his information. Sure, he linked me something. It's decent. At least he answered the question. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and say, you know what? Let's take a different fight. So I'm going to go to this guild's logs, Noble. Unfortunately, Noble, your guild is the one in the video. And let's find something else. Because I'm going to look at what they linked me, and then we're also going to go and find our own information. So I'm going to go ahead and look for something else. What is this? Shadhar, 17 wipes. Shadhar, 29 wipes. Okay, so they did 2 nights of progression on Shadhar. Oh no, wow, they did many nights of progression on Shadhar. That's rough. Sorry, man. So this is their kill night. They have 29 wipes. And you can see they did kill it. 29 wipes total, so 30 attempts in all. So we're going to look at all encounters, including the kill. One kill, 29 wipes. As soon as it loads. And I'm going to look at damage taken from Umbral Eruption. This is an ability I like to use from the current raid tier, or at least it's current at the time of this video, Nyalotha. Umbral Eruption, because it does not give you a warning when it's going to happen. A graphic appears on the ground, you step out of it, it's as simple as that. If you stand in it, you took avoidable damage, and you really don't have an excuse. You can't say, oh, I stood in it because it would have been better. There's no excuse. You just shouldn't get hit by this mechanic. Melee are more likely to get hit by it because it usually is a big clusterfuck in melee, and it may be a little bit harder for someone without mobility to get out of it. But from what I've seen in my experience, healers very often get hit by this mechanic. It's a healer-intensive fight. They're focused on healing, and they just get hit by the ability. If you compare any logs, you'll see that healers, right at the top of this log, the 2 healers are getting hit the most. Our DK friend that applied wasn't in this, so for whatever reason he wasn't in, maybe I probably should have looked at the application to see if he was raiding in this guild the whole time. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to evaluate what I see here, and I'm going to sort this by hits. And you can see that these, I would say 4 players-ish towards the bottom, but these 2 with 6 really stand out as players that don't get hit by this mechanic. This priest is by far the worst player in the raid. He gets hit a lot They only had 29 wipes. He got hit several times each pull. My gut instinct tells me that if I were to go look at the deaths, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to put the filter in. We're going to filter it to 3. Very important. Filter out deaths that happen after a certain amount of deaths. Okay, he's still at the top. In fact, it looks even worse for him now that we filtered out to 3. We find that on any given encounter, before 3 people have died, he was hit 36 times across 30 attempts. This feral druid was only hit twice. So he's pretty much their slam dunk player. So my gut instinct says that this person has the highest or one of the highest death rates. This person has the lowest or one of the lowest death rates. So if I go into an FQ, I'm going to go look at death rates for players. And I'm going to sort it by average time alive. You'll see that FQ, the Feral Druid, the one who had the least amount of hits from Umbral Eruption, was alive 100% of the time before 3 players were dead. He was never ever on any attempt one of the first 3 players dead, which makes sense because he's not getting hit by an avoidable mechanic. The Priest, who got hit by the most amount of avoidable mechanics, was dead for a lot of the night. He wasn't the most dead, but he was dead for a lot of the night. And you can see the number of deaths up here. These are the players that were one of the first 3 to die. I can lower this to 2, and I'm going to leave it at 3. 3 is good enough. You'll usually get a good evaluation of the group by using 3. And look at the number 1 cause of deaths. Umbral Eruption. It's not a coincidence that I picked Umbral Eruption to do the evaluation. Umbral Eruption caused 26 of the first 3 deaths across all 30 wipes. So on any given pull, you should expect that someone's going to die to Umbral Eruption. That happened almost every single pull for them, according to the numbers. Then there's some other ones here, but I'm not going to get too much into that. It's meant to be a relatively shorter video. I don't want it to go on for too long. And I'm going to now take this a step further. I want to know, how do these people compare to the people in our raid group? So Warcraft Logs has a nifty little feature, which I don't think too many people use. It's called the compare feature. So we go into the compare, we can compare reports, and we're going to compare with a URL. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go find our guild, which is Watched Up Scrubs on Mal'Ganis. And I'm going to go find our Shadhar progression, which should be somewhere, I guess, around March, probably, no, I guess maybe a little bit earlier, February. One moment here. Maybe it was January. When did we progress on Shadhar? It's in here. Trust me, it's in here. That's Vaxiona. I wish I knew what Shadhar's picture looked like. 34, 10, 20. Drestagath. When did we progress on Shadhar? Okay, I'm going to do this the easy way. I probably should have had this pulled up beforehand. One way to find out when you kill the boss is just to go look at when you killed the boss. So we killed the boss pre-nerf February 3rd. So February 3rd should be... Oh, it's right here. It's posted as February 2nd. Okay. It's probably like 1 a.m. on February 3rd. So we have here Shadhar progression, 22 wipes. This is good enough. I would prefer a little more, like 30 wipes like in the other one, but this is good enough. So 22 wipes on Shadhar. What you do is you take this link at the top, copy and paste everything after the slash. I'm going to go back to the original one, hit compare reports, paste it, and now it's going to compare our guild's progression to this guild's progression. And I'm going to pick Shadhar all encounters on Shadhar. And we're going to do the same thing, except it's going to show us a side-by-side comparison, players in our group compared to players in their group. And I'm going to look at damage taken, Umbral Eruption. And okay, well there is some very clear outliers in our guild. Let's put this to 3 players dead. So, before 3 players are dead, or should I say, we're ignoring events after 3 players have died, sorry. In our guild, our biggest liability is our healer, which makes sense because I distinctly remember this on progression. This specific healer was dying a fair amount. Unfortunately, they've become the scapegoat in this video for our progression on this boss. And hey, look, I'm at the bottom. I never get hit by the ability. Now, what is surprising to me is actually Rumple's here at the bottom, because it's very uncommon to have healers at the bottom for Umbral Eruption. As I said before, healers are very often the most hit. In both guilds, a healer was the most often hit. So when you're trying to compare players to other guilds in your guild, and when you're trying to analyze whether or not a player is good at mechanics, all you have to do is pick an avoidable mechanic and see how often they get hit by it. And this is how you do it. I am impressed with the Feral Druid over there. Unfortunately, he's a Feral Druid. What a waste of talent. What else can I do? As far as damage numbers, I'm not too concerned with damage numbers. Healing numbers, not too concerned with healing numbers. This is the core. Do you get hit by avoidable mechanics? And this is exactly what you should do when you're trying to analyze whether or not someone is worth taking. And that's pretty much it. If I go back to the application, I have information here about when he raided. I know he wasn't in the logs, but I guess that's not too relevant. He says, I took a long break from the game after the first year of Legion. That's a big red flag right there, usually. You don't want to see people taking big, long breaks from the game, especially if you're an established guild that has a history. You don't need to take risks with people who took a break unless you feel like taking one. I don't care too much about his raiding experience. Another question is on there. This is kind of a question that you're not supposed to answer. If the answer to this question is no, you should close the application and you should not apply. That goes for all guilds. But back to the main topic. Evaluating the performance of a player. There is nothing better. If you know of something better, then please let me know. After you've done this, which is the quick way to evaluate the performance of a player, if you want more information, what you can do is you can go into the deaths and you can say, okay, let's take a look from their guild, and we see that this guy died a fair amount. Why did this guy die? Well, let's take a look at it. You can actually take a look at each specific attempt where they died and say, what did they do that they could have done to help themselves? So he got hit by Umbral Eruption. What a surprise. And Debilitating Spit, and I believe that's the unavoidable mechanic, the Slurry Outburst, which is the explosion from the slime. But there's the key, the avoidable mechanic, Umbral Eruption. No further analysis needed. You got hit by Umbral Eruption, and you were dead. End of story. Let's take a look at the next one. Wipe 3. Again, same thing. Umbral Eruption times 2 this time, dead. No further analysis needed. Let's try to find one where he didn't die to Umbral Eruption. Whoops, new window, that's fine. Again, Umbral Eruption. Okay, so 3 of his deaths so far are from Umbral Eruption. No further analysis needed. Maybe every single one of his deaths was from Umbral Eruption, I don't know. Again, okay, same thing. We see a repeating pattern here. People dying from Umbral Eruption. I'm going to do one more fight just to show you. It's not just Shadhar. You could pick a different fight. And I'm just going to look at their guild. But without... Okay, let's go to Noble. Let's go to Calendar. And we're going to take a look at their Vexiona progression. That's another good one to use because it's very easy to identify the people that were dying first on Vexiona. They most likely got sucked in by the mechanic and hit by the dudes that do the AoE stun. And it's very easy to identify it. A fight like N'Zoth is much harder to evaluate a player. You would need to really kind of look in very deep into the logs, which takes a lot of time, and you don't want to waste a lot of time reviewing applications. You just want a quick breakdown. Who can avoid an avoidable mechanic? Vexiona. When do we progress on Vexiona? Or when did they progress on Vexiona? Mott? Okay, I don't see Vexiona here. So I'm not going to... What about this one? Dark Inquisitor doesn't work. This one doesn't work. What's this one? Dark Inquisitor. Lots of Dark Inquisitor wipes. Oof. You can't evaluate Dark Inquisitor. It's extremely hard. Shadhar again. This group is struggling. Okay, let's use Hive Mind. It's only 15. It's only 15, but we're going to use it anyway. It's what they got. So we're going to use Hive Mind. The plans have changed. So we're going to look at all wipes here. And let's just say we're on a new progression fight. We don't really know why people are dying. We have these logs. We kind of want to find out what's going wrong. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to look at the deaths and ignoring everything after 3 people are dead. I'm seeing that there's quite a few people who are dead, a lot more than other people. And I want to see what's causing the death. So it seems to be a lot of different things. So I'm going to take a look at, let's just take a look at one of the later attempts. This guy, why did he die on wipe 11 at 47% of the way through the fight? Well, let's take a look. He died to Echoing Void. Well, what was going on? First, let's take a look at Echoing Void. Inflict shadow damage to allies within 4 yards. It only hits you once. The only way you can get hit more than once is by standing on top of other players. So the fact that he has 3 hits here means he was standing on top of other players. Given that this is a melee, my gut instinct says that he probably was trying to do maximum damage possible and stay in and attack the boss. Let's actually take this a step further. I want to evaluate this player a step further. I'm going to take a look at wipe 11 on the replay, and I'm going to find the exact point where this guy died. So I'm just going to take my bar, drag it across. Okay, the guy's dead. Let's take a look at what's going on here. We have Acid Pool underneath him. Where is he? He's the Death Knight. I believe that's him right there. Specco. No. There's 2 Death Knights. He's the one right here in the middle. So he's about to die. He dies. Okay. So they're supposed to spread out for this Echoing Void. And I'm going to try to pause this right on the point where he dies. There he is. He's dead. See that right there? They're dead on top of each other. They're supposed to spread for Echoing Void. Unfortunately, this is the Feral Druid that I was praising before. Neither of them spread. They're trying to do maximum damage to the boss. They're just like melee tunnel visions, hitting their DPS rotation into the boss, and they died for no real important reason. He could have just went down a little bit. Feral Druid could have gone up a little bit. Neither of them would have splashed each other, but let's go back and play this a few seconds here. The boss is moving. They're on top of each other, and they just die. Everybody else is spread out. Nothing further to it. These are all tools you can use when you're evaluating players. Use the compare feature, check out the avoidable mechanics that they get hit by, that's number 1, and then you can zone in on certain pulls and take a quick look at the replay. Look at the exact point where they died, because sometimes it's a positional thing, and you can clearly see the position. Think about the mechanic how it's supposed to work. And that's pretty much the end of the video. I don't really have anything else to say. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this helps you evaluate other players in your group. I'm sorry to this guy that I pretty much used you as your application has been denied. You're not in the logs. There's not much else to say there. Yeah. So that's the end of the video. Have a good one, guys. Bye.